Hi, everybody. I'm Shannon Beechner, and this is my interview for speech. It's Tuesday, February 26th at 2:10. I was supposed to do my interview at Heartland, but due to the weather, I had to do it over the phone. I am interviewing Nicole Taylor. She is a respiratory therapist at Heartland Medical Center in St. Joseph, Missouri. Hi, Nicole. Thank you for taking the time out of your day to come and interview.
You're very, very welcome. Anything I can do to help, spread the word.
So this interview is about getting as much information as I can about respiratory therapists, and I just want to go through some of your personal and some advice that you would want to give us, your ups, your downs, the struggles, the educational background, and the rewards you receive throughout being a respiratory therapist. We'll start with the good and the bad. What are some of the ups or great things you do about your job?
Well, I guess one of the best things I have in my job is people. And anytime that you can touch another human life in a positive way, and that's rewarding in itself, and to save a life. To love your job is a wonderful thing, and as being a respiratory therapist, I do love my job. It's very intense, and it can be really intense, and then it can be really laid back. But you got to remember that a respiratory therapist, we are the airway of life.
What would be some of the bad things you do in your job?
I guess probably I would have to say that the worst thing that could happen at my job, because again I do deal with people, would be losing a life after you've tried and the whole team has worked together, the doctors, the nurses, the aides, the respiratory therapists, and put everything that we could forward, and the end result was death. That's tough. That's real tough. I mean, that's another human being, and it's hard to deal with.
How do you deal with it? Like at the end of the day, and that happens. How does your body just know to leave it at work? Like how do you get over something like that?
Well, I think that everybody is different in that aspect, and I know that going into the field, the first step was always the worst. It's something that you hadn't expected before and never really saw. As talking for myself, I've never really saw. But I'm not going to say that it gets easier, because it doesn't get easier. And you do start to get connected with these people, and you start to build a bond and a relationship, especially some of your long-term patients and your elderly and some of your children that are more sick than just your acute patients that come to the hospital and they get their breathing treatments and they get their medicine and then they go home, like a pneumonia patient or something like that. But we're talking a long-term cancer child, baby, adult patient. It's tough. It's tough. But you have to know that you have to separate that. In order to be good at what you do, you have to accept death as part of life. And I guess that's how I do it.
What do you say? Like, what do you say to yourself to prepare yourself for when you go home? Like, do you have something that you just tell yourself, or you just know?
Well, it sometimes it just depends on the situation, as I said. Not that one person is any more pertinent in life or any more special in life, but like I said, you build a bond. And sometimes, you'll cry I will cry all the way home until I hit the door. And usually, in a case like that, I'm telling myself that, like I think a lot of us do, just in life in general, that they're better off. I tried everything that I could possibly try. I can only give 110%, and that's what I give. And if the unforsaken happens, well, it is part of the circle of life, and something that you have to get used to. As awful as that sounds, you just have to prepare yourself for that.
And that's for anything in the medical field, right? Not just respiratory therapists, that's just anything?
I would say that would be any medical personnel. I mean, all the way down to, I would say that would be any human being in life. You know, when you really get down to the basics of it.
Yeah. I know that everybody struggles at some point in their life. And what would you say that was your biggest struggle, I mean, during going through school to become a respiratory therapist and your job now?
Well, the school that I went to, it was a fast-paced college. It was Concord. And most of your medical colleges are pretty fast-paced. But to top it off, I was not a traditional student. I wasn't fresh out of high school. Something that I really regret. And I encourage all those seniors that are graduating to get back in school and go get that degree. But moving on, I was also going through a divorce at the time. I had to carry a full-time job, and I was trying to raise 2 kids. So it was chaotic. It was stressful. But you know what? I just kept pushing on and got my degree. And it was probably the biggest struggle. And at the time that I was going to school, I felt like it was probably the worst time in my whole entire life. But looking back, I have to laugh. You know, at the times I cried coming home from school from thinking that I just bombed the test totally, and then to go in the next day and get like a 99%. You know, but try higher.
What would be your struggle that you have in your job today? Like being a respiratory therapist, what would you think you struggle over?
I would have to say the little kids that come in and, the elderly, they kind of live their life, but the little kids that have a disease that's non-curable, that there is not a cure for, that has to be a struggle.
And how long have you been in the respiratory field?
I have been a respiratory therapist for 7 years. And prior to this, I did hair for 13 years. But I always knew that my heart laid in the medical field. My mother was a RN at Heartland Hospital all of my life growing up. And so I just knew that I wanted more. I needed something more fulfilling than just to cut somebody's hair off. I need to go home at the end of the day knowing that I had done something.
Prior to this interview, we were asked to do 3 sources that we used so that our teacher knows that this is a real interview. I chose the school that you went to, and you said that was Concord, right?
That's right.
I used the Concord website, would be one of my sources, because that not only lets everyone know about their school, but also more about the respiratory therapy program. I also chose your Heartland website, your job website, because that allows people to know how the facility is and more about where it's at and how you guys work and more about what your job does too. And on that page, there's a Heartland team page, and that isn't just for the employees working there at Heartland. It is for anybody, because they're wanting to get the community involved and for everybody to help everybody.
Yeah, I think that you chose 3 good examples, and anybody that's wanting to go to school, it's all fast paced. But Concord, they really stand behind you. They have great success rates. Sorry about that. And the team page that you referenced earlier for Heartland Hospital, that is a great aspect. And I just had to mention this because you did mention the word team. At Heartland, we are teams. We have team leaders, and we have teams of, we don't call them like they are your coworkers, but they're your team members, because without each modality of the hospital, we couldn't survive and we couldn't help people, and everybody's an individual. So with that being said, you need all those team members, and everybody has to play in a respectable, responsible way, so that way we can all reach our goal, and that's to save a life, to make somebody well, to help somebody feel good.
What, sorry, go ahead.
So with that being said, I would say that yes, I encourage everybody to check out the team page, and also, what's on TV, because we do a lot of stuff that's heart healthy and upper respiratory healthy, and like I said earlier, we are the airway to life.
What is some advice that you would give to an upcoming respiratory therapist?
I would have to say that keep your head up, push forward, never stop. You see that dream, grab it, reach out and grab it. If you want something bad enough, then you will succeed. As I said before, strive for them A's, don't strive for C's. Be on top of everything that you're going to do. Give it your all. This is people. These are not textbooks. These are not items. These are human beings. They're lives. They're your neighbors, your brother, your sister, your mom. When somebody asks you a question and you don't know the answer, I say, be honest. I don't have that answer. But also what I would expect is go find that answer. Whether you have to call a colleague, whether you have to call a nurse, whether you have to get online, you have to resource a book, get that answer, so that way you can return back to that patient, or you can return back to that family member, and you can let them know exactly that, I do care. I care enough to go find out the answer that you asked about your medical life, or whatever it could pertain to.
And is there anything else that we should know about respiratory therapists that I had failed to ask?
Well, I just want to iterate again how rewarding that it is. It is such a rewarding job. You get these little kids in, and they have pneumonia, or they have bronchitis, or they have asthma, and they can't breathe very well. And we give them a breathing treatment, and the next thing you know, they're up and they're jumping around. And that puts a smile on my face right there. And an elderly that might have pneumonia, that when they came in, they were close to leaving this earth, and then to see them walking out, or to be strolled out into a wheelchair because they're getting ready to go home. Touch is such a powerful thing, and people are very powerful. We need to keep that in mind. We are the human race. So I would have to say, just remember, be compassionate, and the rewards are high.
And would you say not to focus on more of the bad things that would happen, like someone passing, because people have ups and downs in any career that they pick?
I would definitely say that not to focus on that. You can't dwell in that. Like I said, if you put your best foot forward and you've done everything that you possibly could, and the patient still passed away, that's something that each individual has to deal with. But definitely don't dwell in that. There is a circle of life, and it's inevitable. Everybody must die, so you can't get stuck there. You have to continue to learn and educate yourself, and be ready for that next person that's coming in that might need your help.
Thank you so much, Nicole. You've answered every question that I need, and had helped me, and hopefully helped upcoming respiratory therapists know more from respiratory how things work.
You're welcome, Shannon, and it's always a pleasure to talk to you. And as always, I ask you keep them grades up in school, and I know that you'll enjoy this career.
Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day.